Whew. All right, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Big night, everybody. Our last live stream with these college football playoff rankings before Selection Sunday. So we got a lot of questions that we're going to get answered and a lot of discussion coming your way. So I'm ready to be back. Took a week off last week, and we're ready to be back and get going. So we got Emperor of Rome, hey, football prophet. I love that. I love the football prophet. But Emperor of Rome, glad to see you. DM, Gridiron Guru. I think I might have to start keeping a list of all these names that y'all are giving me, but I'm loving them. I'm loving them. Football Prophet, Gridiron Guru, Boards, Hunter, 5657, Cyclone Mitch, the new moderator we should add, getting to utilize his powers for the first time on a live stream. So good to have you, Mitch. Johnny Bays, you were asking about it earlier, so glad you were able to make it. Alec Griffith, Grin 8, what's going on? Everybody, super glad to have you, and I'm sure many others will be rolling in over the course of this entire stream. So we're ready to get going. Biggest things I want to answer tonight are, first off, I want to see where the committee ranks Utah, Oklahoma, and Baylor. Are they going to be 5, 6, 7 like we had this in our rankings that we released yesterday, or are they going to be a little switched up? That's something that I'm very interested to see going into tonight, because that's going to play a major role into who could maybe get into that top 4 come Sunday, depending on what happens in conference championship weekend. And we will touch on that. We have videos coming out on that later this week. Corey Barber, good to have you. Adler Pro, so excited I can finally be here for this. Don't tell my professor I'm doing this in class. Hey, look at that. I love it. I'm going to actually, in case he doesn't have his volume up, let's see, hold on. All right, so Adler, glad to have you. Cyclone Mitch, can't wait for Championship Sunday. Neither can we. Actually starts Friday. Starts on Friday with the Pac-12 championship game. And in recent years, that game hasn't mattered much because we knew that the winner was not in playoff contention. Now it does. Now we know that if Utah wins, they could very well get into that final 4th spot. If Oklahoma wins, and the door is wide open for potentially Oklahoma or Baylor to slip in there. So huge Pac-12 championship on Friday night. Hunter, I'm thinking, and all of you that are asking, I'm thinking Bama. I had Alabama at number 8. I had them dropping 3. A lot of people disagree with that. Some people said they should have dropped as far as 17th, 18th. And I know Emperor of Rome, being a Bama fan who, in his defense, I will add, I was very, very impressed and admirable, I will say, what you point out on our rankings video, how you agreed that Bama may have been a little too high. Being an honest fan, that's a true fan right there. So Bama, I've got them at 8. They might drop as far as 10th. I cannot imagine Alabama dropping out of the top 10 by tonight. I would be shocked if the committee drops them from 5th to even 11th. Anything lower than that, I will be stunned. Because what we have to understand, guys, is my philosophy. I still think Alabama could beat a lot of these top 25 teams. Maybe not the teams they are ahead of. Maybe not Auburn, obviously. But I do feel like they could beat a lot of these teams here. And that was a major reason for us putting them where they are. Even with Mac Jones, they're still a very solid team. So some of y'all thinking 9. Don Tron Plays, good to have you. Becoming a regular here at the Gridiron Expert. I love it. Tiger Raven 18. Go Clemson Tigers. Probably going to remain at number 3 tonight, but always happy to have you here as well. So let's see who else we have. DM, I saw your comment earlier too. You were talking about Schiano equals optimism. Of course, we, at the end of this season, like after the national championship, or maybe before, depending on how quickly the carousel starts spinning, we'll definitely have a video out on major coaching changes. Rutgers making the first move, bringing back Greg Schiano. Fantastic hire. Give it an A+. I love it. That was a fantastic hire to bring back somebody that knows the program, succeeded at the program, had experience across the board, not just at Rutgers, but defensive coordinator at Ohio State. Little experience in the NFL, may not have worked out well. Fantastic hire for a Rutgers team that needs to get back to relevancy. So we're going to get back to that. We'll definitely address a lot of these changes in a few weeks, but Arkansas still on the market. Missouri, Ole Miss, and plenty of SEC schools. Florida State still searching. Boston College now fires Steve Adazio. So some big-time schools getting rid of their coaches. A lot of things to address as the carousel continues to pick up and as a lot more coaches continue to leave. We're going to get to your comments here in a minute, but we are opening up the rankings right now. Here we go. Oklahoma State coming in at 25. Kind of surprising to me, only dropping 4 spots, but they stay in the top 25 following the loss to Oklahoma. Navy in at 24. Virginia in at 23. USC 22. And App State at 21. So just a couple off on ours. I am surprised at USC sitting at 22 right now. No change, obviously, but I feel like some things could have changed. Virginia very much deserves to be in at 23, and Navy coming in at 24th there. No Kansas State. Keep that in mind. Thought the committee might put them in there at 25th. We got Cincinnati in at number 20. Got Boise State in at 19, exactly where we had them. Minnesota dropping all the way down to 18, dropping 10 spots following that loss to Wisconsin. Memphis in at 17, very disrespected there, in my opinion. We'll touch on that in a minute. Iowa coming in at 16. Memphis should be a little bit higher. We had them at 15, playing extremely good football, just beat Cincinnati. I don't believe that they should be as low as 17, even though they did move up 1 spot. You've got Michigan coming in at 14, so that is a kicker, guys. Only dropping 1 spot here. Don't know why the committee did that, and we'll touch on that in a second. Notre Dame moving up a spot to 15, so I'm sure my guys like Johnny and Brody, everybody like that, they're happy with at least a move up in the rankings. Oregon in at 13, Alabama to 12. Alabama dropping 7 spots outside the top 10 to number 12, and now below Auburn despite having a better record than the Tigers. Even though Auburn won the head-to-head, they put Alabama below them despite being 10-2. Maybe Auburn giving them the benefit of the doubt with some better wins. I think that Oregon win probably holding a lot of weight right there. Penn State coming in at number 10, no change. And you're probably not going to see many changes in this top 10. Certainly not within the top 4. Biggest shifts are going to be where the teams move following the Alabama game. Florida coming in at number 9. We had them at 10. So a lot of our rankings were just 1 rank off. Man, I would love to have been more perfect on those. So Florida coming in at number 9. Ahead of Penn State, moving up 2 spots from 11th to 9th following their beating of Florida State. We knew it was coming. No big major surprise there. Wisconsin jumping all the way up to number 8. That is huge. That could be a number 1, number 8 Big Ten championship. And we'll talk more about that here in a second, about what it could mean if Wisconsin somehow pulled off the major upset. 4 spots, though, from 12th to 8th, now in the top 10. Will look even better for Ohio State if they win. Will be very interesting if Wisconsin pulls off this upset, sitting at 10-2 above the likes of Florida and Penn State. Now coming in at 7, I would presume this would be Baylor. I would assume Baylor would come in with the 7th spot, and it's going to be your toss-up for the 5th spot between Oklahoma and Utah. We're going to wait on the reveal of number 7 here. Emperor of Rome, you're exactly right. You did tell me Florida over Bama. I didn't want to take your word for it, but you nailed it. Maybe I should rename you the Football Prophet. Baylor moving up 2 spots, though, from 9th to 7th, exactly where we had them, exactly where they deserve to be going into Saturday's Big 12 championship game. So they're going to talk about it here for a little bit, and so are we. You look at this, guys, it is a bit of a surprise that we have Alabama dropping from 5th to 12th. That's 7 spots. 7 spots that they're going to drop. Auburn coming in 11. That's where we have them. We've got Baylor at number 7. A lot of these, like we said, off by just 1. We're kind of go through and kind of clear those out. But, you know, looking across the board, guys, Alabama's the biggest shock to me so far. Memphis coming in not any higher after that win over Cincinnati. That kind of surprising to me. So I'm very interested to see that. Oklahoma State remaining in the top 25. Ryan McCormick, if you're watching now, if you're watching later, I'm sure you're very pleased that the Cowboys stayed in. You asked me that question. I didn't think they would be. I didn't think they'd remain ranked, losing by 18 points to Oklahoma at home. But they only dropped them 4. So the Cowboys staying in there. And part of me believes that could give Oklahoma a big edge. You know, with this being the final set of rankings before Selection Sunday, the teams that are in contention for the college football playoff, for those top 4 spots, when the committee looks at them, if they win their respective conference championships, they're going to look and say, well, they've got wins over teams that we currently have ranked. Oklahoma wins, they're going to say, well, they've got to win over Oklahoma State. They've got 2 wins over Baylor, who we have at number 7. Those things are going to really benefit a team like Oklahoma. Same for Baylor, who would have beaten Oklahoma and now beaten a ranked Oklahoma State team. So the fact that some of these teams remain here in these rankings is huge for the elite teams within the top 7. So Alabama dropping, Memphis staying where they are, or going up a spot, kind of shocking there. If you look, though, you've got Cincinnati, guys. Cincinnati remaining at 20th. There's a tight race between Boise State and Cincinnati right now for that second spot in the group of 5 teams. So keep an eye on that, because it'll be very interesting to see where that plays out for that group of 5 conference champion. Oklahoma coming in at 6, no surprise. That means Utah is definitely 5. They kind of went backwards on us. Usually they go 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, then 5 and 6. They're going backwards here. We've got Oklahoma in at 6, Utah in at 5, and I would expect the top 4 to remain unchanged, and it shouldn't. Ohio State, no way. The committee decided to jump them over LSU last week with the win over Michigan. Will remain at number 1. LSU dominated A&M. They stay at 2. Clemson at 3, Georgia at 4. And that's exactly the way it's going to be here. So, once again, not a major surprise. And they're kind of going through a little quicker now. And there you go, guys. That is your top 25 coming into the final week of the season with Conference Championship weekend. It's going to get interesting. And we'll talk about some of these playoff scenarios here that we have between Georgia and LSU and Utah and Oregon and Oklahoma and Baylor. And what could possibly happen if we get a chaotic conference championship weekend. So that's your top 25, guys. Now let's talk. I'm going to kind of take your questions before I kind of go off on my rants on whatever I have to say. Emperor of Rome, Akron got screwed. I'm just surprised they're not ranked in the top 25, man. I tell you what, a team of that caliber winning as well as they have in the MAC, they should be at least 25th right now. And man, I tell you what, no respect to these lower level conferences. All right, so let's go through some of your questions and your comments on what is happening right now. So let's see. Emperor of Rome, once again, addressing your comments. Don't necessarily think I had Alabama too high. Just think that Florida should be ranked above Alabama, or necessarily I had Florida too high. Believing that Florida's playing some really good football. And imagine where we would be right now if Florida had beat Georgia in the regular season. You know, imagine where we would be looking. Imagine if Florida had beaten LSU, a game that they were in to the very end. So you look at something like that, you can have Florida being in the top 6 right now and fighting for a playoff spot. And Dan Mullen's got his team going in the right direction. Felipe Franks moving out. He's going to be transferring or declaring for the NFL. We're not sure which yet. But regardless, it's Kyle Trask's job now. And Dan Mullen is building something very, very quickly there. Very, very quickly. Span of 2 years. So that's what we're looking there. Sam Pham, do I think SMU could win the American one day? Absolutely. They should have won it. Should have had a chance to win it this year. Just Memphis and Cincinnati and guys like that were playing extremely well. The American was very, very competitive this season, more so than it's been in a long time. UCF has had competitors like Houston, like Cincinnati, like Memphis, but this American conference was very deep and very talented this year, and SMU just wasn't able to get the job done. But absolutely, if they continue to play the way they were doing this year, the season they had is going to be huge for them in recruiting. They're trending up. They're trending up, and they will win the American, I think, very, very soon. Let's go through the rest of these comments here. See, I knew Johnny would be upset. Notre Dame at 15 is absolutely ridiculous. So Notre Dame coming in at 15, we had them up at number 12. Look, they move up a spot at least. They move from 16th to 15th. So at least they gave them credit for a win over Stanford, moving them up one spot in the rankings. Like you said, or a couple of you guys have said, you couldn't justify putting Notre Dame over a handful of these other teams. The biggest thing I disagree with, guys, looking at this, is Michigan. Michigan dropping just one spot in the committee's rankings from 13th to 14th after getting killed by nearly 30 points at home to Ohio State. And I don't know what their mindset was behind that ranking. I don't know if they thought that, it's just Ohio State. Michigan didn't have much of a chance anyways. Okay, we're gonna drop them. Or maybe the committee only watched the first half and they just forgot to look at the second half, because I'm not a Michigan hater by any means. I'm not trying to dog on the Wolverines here, but you lost by nearly 30 points, 29 points at home in a game where you were competing in the first half, and then you just let up after that. Mistakes. Ohio State clearly the better team. But 29-point loss at home. And Columbus, maybe a different story, but only dropping one spot from that. I wholeheartedly disagree with that. Michigan, we had them at 16th. I think that's more appropriate than 14th. I know it's only a 2-spot difference, but one spot following a loss like that. Way, way too high for the Wolverines here, who finished the season 9-3. Yes, they deserve to be over Notre Dame because of the head-to-head, but do not deserve to be ranked where they are. They should have dropped further. So Bama, once again, at 12. That's been a big, major point of discussion through here. Fruther Gaming, glad to have you. Let's go Hokies. Hope they do well in the bowl game for you, and hope you're well rested. As you said, you've slept all day. Jeff Wilson, good to have you here as well. Once again, I saw your comment earlier. Yes, I will be doing New Year's 6 bowl predictions. For those of you that are on right now, before we keep going through the rest of these comments, we will have a individual video for every single bowl game. So let's get some applause for that. Because we are going to have analysis on every single bowl game, individual videos. Not like we normally do. We put 5 up there. That gets a little too clustered, and then we ramble for 20 minutes. Shorter videos, I know a lot of you are hoping for that. Shorter videos for every bowl, from the Bahamas Bowl to the college football playoff games to the national championship, New Year's 6 bowl games, every single one of them, each video highlighting that game and sharing our prediction. So, yeah, we're going to have a lot of content. So New Year's 6 bowl games will be covered. We're going to break it down on Sunday, kind of a preview. Not going to predict, but we're going to preview what the committee has decided and analyze that. We're going to have conference championship recaps. Don't worry, we've got you covered. When have we ever let you down before? All right, so B123, happy to have you here as well. Haven't heard from you in a while, so glad you're able to join the live stream. Happy you were here. Freaky Mike Games thinks Air Force should be in at 25. Air Force, phenomenal season. I think 10-2. Once again, I think you take Oklahoma State out, that opens the door for a team like Kansas State, Air Force, or SMU to come in at 25. And we put SMU in there, ranked 25th. That's who I would have put in, just because they're also 10-2, have played some more quality opponents maybe than Air Force has, but that opened the door. That's why I am surprised that Oklahoma State was kept in, but I do think they did that because it will benefit the winner of the Big 12 championship game. And I don't mean to say this. I don't know if this is the committee's thought process at all, so I don't want to jump to conclusions here, but do not be surprised if Oklahoma State staying in this top 25 is a little bit of foreshadowing, saying that if Utah wins a close game over Oregon, that we might consider putting in Oklahoma or Baylor, probably more so Oklahoma than Baylor, but putting that winner of the Big 12 championship in over the Utes. And I say that just because of that Oklahoma State ranking at 25th. I think looking at it and saying that, Oklahoma and Baylor both have a win over a currently ranked team, even though it's just 25, they've got that win. They were both convincing for both Baylor and Oklahoma. So if Utah wins by one possession and Oklahoma or Baylor wins that game over a clear top 10 team, do not be surprised if the committee makes it way more dramatic than it needs to be, or maybe even shocks everybody and puts Oklahoma or Baylor, but most likely Oklahoma, in over to Utah for that 4th spot. Of course, assuming that Georgia loses to LSU, where we are assuming that right now. But the Bulldogs are going to give the Tigers a fight, one of the toughest tests they've had all season. So Emperor of Rome, I agree. Memphis is way too low. I think we had them at 15. They're 17. So 15 is more respectable to me. You beat Cincinnati by 10. You've got a chance to do it again this Saturday in the title game. If they beat a top 20 team in back-to-back weeks by double digits, then they need to start putting a little more respect on Memphis' name and putting them at least into the top 15 as they head to that New Year's 6 bowl game. And they will do that because they want a bigger, higher-ranked showdown when a team like Memphis maybe takes on Alabama in a Cotton Bowl or something like that. Keep that in mind, guys. Alabama is going to have a very interesting bowl opponent. Rumors saying that it could be Memphis. Rumors saying that it could be Virginia. Rumors saying that it could be Boise State. And personally, I'd love to see any of those teams go up against the Crimson Tide. Something very, very different. a wonderful opportunity for a group of 5 school like Boise or Memphis to get a win over Nick Saban. Even Bronco Mendenhall and the Cavaliers to do that. But I think right now, if I was making an early prediction, that's certainly not going to happen. Sam Pham, Alabama dropped all the way to 12th from 5th to number 12. And I think everybody got that there. I appreciate it. Grin 8, Johnny Bays got the applause going. So yeah, they're all in on these bowl predictions coming your way here in a few weeks. Yeah, Trey Drew. First off, good to see you. Glad you're able to enjoy the stream. Second off, I agree. Minnesota dropping 10 spots. Here's the thing, though. I had them dropping as far too. I actually had Minnesota at 17. They have them at 18. The way, and that's why I'm dogging Michigan so much is I felt the committee should have measured it equally. Looking at Michigan, looking at what Michigan did, looking at what Minnesota did, both losing by over 20 points at home and arguably their biggest game of the year, they lose by that much. No reason that either of them was going to stay in the top 10. No reason for me either of them should have stayed in the top 15. They should have dropped way, way down, way down. And that's what they did to Minnesota. I think that strength of schedule did not help them. I think the committee disrespected Minnesota for a very long time. The win over Penn State put some respect on their name. And his loss to Wisconsin, I think the committee was like, okay, we tried. We gave them the benefit of the doubt, and they disappointed us, much like we weren't impressed with them until they beat Penn State, and I think that's what did it. I think their weak strength of schedule and the way they struggled to get some of their weaker opponents earlier in the season, I think that's a major reason Minnesota dropped so far following their 21-point loss to Wisconsin. So I'm not fully shocked by that, not fully upset with that, because basically what I did in our top 25, I'm more upset that they didn't do the same to Michigan, which exactly what I think should have happened. Con Guy 97. We are working our way down through these comments, guys. Once again, keep them coming. We love hearing from you. One loss, Clemson still in the playoff? Absolutely not. Anybody on here that thinks Clemson is getting in with a loss to Virginia is absolutely insane. A one-loss Clemson team to a Virginia team currently ranked 23rd by the committee. I don't care if Clemson loses by 1. They are not making the college football playoff. They are not making the playoff because they are number 3 right now. They are just barely in the playoff because there are only 4 teams that make it. And you lose to a Virginia team that's 9-3. They're not getting in. Their strength of schedule has not been that great. And I don't want Dabo Swinney to come cry at me and yell at me like he's been doing in his press conferences. Because I do think that Clemson has gotten disrespected a little bit. I think a lot of people looked at the Tigers early on this season. I think they looked at the poor play from Trevor Lawrence. I think they looked at the near loss in North Carolina, and that's what they continue to associate Clemson with. What they don't see is that Clemson is playing some phenomenal football. They are playing extremely, extremely good football right now, and they can't help who they're playing it against. They can't help that they're playing it against South Carolina. They're playing against North Carolina State or Wake Forest. That's who they have to play in conference within ACC. I know South Carolina, but that's a rivalry game. That's not going to change. They can't help that out. They're taking care of business in dominating fashion the way a good team should. I don't think Clemson loses to Virginia, but if they did somehow, they will not make the college football playoff, and that is going to open the door for a lot of these teams to maybe try to make their case to slip in to the top 4. It would be truly, truly unbelievable. But I just don't think it's going to happen. DJ Power, short and to the point. That's how you do it. Kudos. I appreciate that, DJ. Glad to have you here as well. All right. DM, will I make an FCS championship game video? Absolutely, man. I have promised you that. And you and I have talked about the FCS a little bit, something that I don't think a lot of people pay attention to. But when you've got teams in the FCS that are continuously beating and contending against these FBS schools, I think we are going to make an FCS championship video, shed a little light on that, because they deserve it. That's still college football, and it's something that I'm keeping my eye on. You know, we focus a lot on the FBS, but we still watch the FCS as well. Football is football, and so we will definitely be making a championship game video on that. And I'm hoping that is North Dakota State versus South Dakota State. That rivalry game in the national championship for them, that would be unbelievable. So we will be making a video for that when the time comes. I believe later on in January for those respective schools. Cyclone Mitch, I want to see Utah in the playoffs just because I want to see a new team in. I think that was the goal all season long, guys. I think, we said that back in the preseason. We said, this year of college football just felt different. 150th year of college football, and we said, we knew LSU was going to be good, Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, guys like that. But who was going to be that dark horse team that finally proved everyone right? When someone, back in July says, yeah, my dark horse team's is Utah. Oh, yeah, sure, whatever. Yeah, like they're going to make the playoff. Well, now look at them. Now they are. Now they're one win away from making the top four. We knew something like that was going to happen. We didn't know who it was going to be, or at least we hoped something like that was going to happen. And now we've got two teams, Utah and Baylor, that depending on what happens this weekend, one of those schools is going to get into the playoff, more than likely, unless they both lose. And then who knows? But they're in contention. And that's something that we haven't had in a long time. It's usually been very bland. We knew who was going to get in. We knew that even if there were a couple upsets in these championship games that these guys weren't going to make much of an impact. It wasn't going to matter. Now it does. This is one of the biggest championship weekends we've had in a very, very long time. 3 top 10 matchups, guys, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. Oh, I like that. Emperor Brum. Gus Malzahn should leave Auburn for Ole Miss. Don't at me. Whew. Well, that's a hot take. That's a hot take. I'd love to know why. He said, or Arkansas. He won't come to Arkansas. I know he has ties there, and I think deep down, Gus Malzahn wants to come to Arkansas, but he just beat Alabama, and he's 9-3. There were rumors that had he lost to Alabama this past weekend, he would have been fired. Then I think he'd come crawling back to Arkansas, or maybe he'd flock to Missouri or Ole Miss, an SEC school, to stay in the conference. But I just don't see him leaving. I think if he went to Arkansas or Ole Miss, though, the expectations and the standards would be much lower than what he's expected to do at Auburn. And I think that, their fans, even though they just beat Alabama this year, even though they contended with Georgia, they're getting restless. Great, we're 9-3. When are you going to bring us a national championship? Something that he has yet to do. He's gotten them there, but he has yet to do it. And that's what they want. They want to contend for an SEC title every single year. They want to be playoff contenders every single year. And for some of these schools, that is just not realistic. And if Gus wants to save himself from stress and maybe not get put out of coaching early, unlike Chris Peterson, who was one of the biggest shocking storylines of this week, leaving Washington because of anxiety and stress and pressure, then maybe Gus Malzahn should consider leaving. All right, still scrolling through a lot of these comments here. Johnny Bays, where was your comment a second ago? I really want to hear justification for Bama, Florida, and Oregon to be ahead of Notre Dame. So Bama, who's that? Bama, Florida, and Oregon to be ahead of Notre Dame. Well, we'll start with Alabama here, being ahead of Notre Dame. Both sitting right now at 10-2 over, and this is coming from me. It's not coming from the committee. The committee probably has different reasons. I don't think they think a lot of things through. But once again, I don't have too many discrepancies here. So they have clearly gotten better over the past few weeks. They struggled with their first set of rankings, their second set of rankings, and now when it's mattering the most, they're continuing to improve. Legalized Quack, before I get to your answer, Johnny, he says Notre Dame should be happy where they are. You should be glad where Notre Dame is where they are. Maybe they won't get blown out in a 9th consecutive major bowl game. So, shots fired here in the chat. Shots happen. Man, I tell you what, Legalized Quack just bringing the heat tonight. But in a way, I can see where he's coming from there. Notre Dame has yet to win a major bowl game under Brian Kelly. Has yet to win one in a very, very long time. I do not think Notre Dame could beat Alabama. I do not think Notre Dame could beat Florida. I think the best chance Notre Dame would have to beat out of those 3 teams is Oregon. And depending on where that game was played, I don't know if they could beat them. But I don't think they could beat Alabama and Florida right now, even with Mac Jones and the disappointing Alabama defense running for the Crimson Tide right now. I think that could justify some of it. If you look at Florida, you look at some of the quality wins that they have. Florida, of course, beating Auburn, hanging with Georgia. There's no such things as moral victories in college football, not even close. There are no such thing as moral victories. But when the committee is ranking these teams, I do believe they look at close losses. I do believe they look at margin of victory. And that's why, we've said, for some of these conference championship games, like for LSU, if the Tigers lose a close game, to Georgia, then they will probably stay in the top 4. But if Georgia walked into Atlanta and beat LSU 45-0, then LSU's not staying in the top 4 despite their undefeated record, despite the wins over Alabama and Florida and guys like that, and Auburn. So margin of victory plays a huge role. And part of that plays a role here for Florida. I think part of that plays a role for Alabama. Their 2 losses coming by a combined 8 points, 5 to LSU and 3 to Auburn. So I think a lot of that plays into the role for Notre Dame, who really in their 2 biggest games this season against Michigan and Georgia, they failed to win. Got blown out by Michigan, close against Georgia. So there's that slim margin of victory there, but that was a long, long time ago, back in September. So I think there's a little bit of justification there for that. I agree Notre Dame should be higher. I have them really, out of those 3 teams you mentioned, though, I only have them ahead of Oregon. So there is that. Christian Martinez, good to have you. Is there another set of rankings after these? I hope Virginia loses, we'll get Kansas State in. So, yeah, there is. I mean, they're going to have to release their final set of rankings on Sunday. All eyes will be on who makes the New Year's Six bowl games and who makes the college football playoff, but they're still going to have to rank all top 25 teams next Sunday. So, Christian, yes, you have a very good chance of Kansas State finishing in the top 25 or being in the top 25 when bowl season comes around later on in December. All right, continuing to come through what you guys have been saying here. Caleb Worku, score prediction for Ohio State, Wisconsin. Come on, guys. You know we don't do score predictions. He's spamming the chat. Don't make my moderators get rid of you, Caleb. Patience. Patience, my young one. Star Wars reference, if anybody gets that. Big Rise of Skywalker movie coming out Tuesday or December 20th as well for any of you Star Wars guys out there. Score prediction, look, Ohio State's going to win. I can tell you that. I think Ohio State wins. I think they win by no more than 21. They beat them by 31 the last time. I think Wisconsin at a neutral site plays Ohio State better. I think Jack Cohn, with throwing the way he did against Minnesota for nearly 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, I think that gives that Wisconsin offense a little bit extra dimension there. You know, they're a very run-heavy team with Jonathan Taylor. Having the ability to throw now with Cohn is going to really expand the offense and make it a little more difficult for Ohio State. But they're not going to be able to shut down J.K. Dobbins, I don't think. And I don't think Ohio State can be stopped. I think they're the most complete team in the country. And I don't know anybody that can beat them as of right now. So no more than 21 points in the Big Ten championship game. But if they do, guys, listen to this. If Wisconsin wins, let's circle that for a second. The committee ranked Wisconsin up at number 8 in the country. There's a possible doomsday scenario, guys, where Wisconsin could slip into that 4th spot. And that would be, I highly doubt it being at 10-2, a 2-loss team, but, you beat Ohio State. I don't see Ohio State dropping from first to out. I don't see that. I think it'd be the same way with LSU. If it's a close loss to Georgia, LSU will not drop out of the top 4, 2 undefeated teams here. But, if Utah were to lose and Baylor were to beat Oklahoma and Wisconsin beats Ohio State by at least a touchdown, I mean, Wisconsin can at least make a case for them to be in the top 4. Let's put it at that. Wisconsin can make a case for them to be in the Final Four. They've got a quality win over Iowa. They've got a quality win over Michigan. They'd have a win over Ohio State. They'd be the Big Ten champion. They would make a case to be in the top 4. I don't think they could get it, but I think they can make a very strong case for it. They would, to me, be very similar to what happened to Penn State a few years ago. A Penn State team that screwed up earlier in the season, ran the table, won the Big Ten over Wisconsin, but was a 2-loss team and were left out as the 5th team in the country. We're not put in as the 4th. That, I think, was what would happen to Wisconsin. But there was a lot of talk as Penn State maybe getting in there. So you can very well make a case for that happening. So, Caleb, there's your score prediction there. Everybody else is giving you score predictions as well. So, going through the rest of it here. Freaky Mike and Games, he's got Memphis and Alabama in the Orange Bowl. I love that. I love that game. I don't know all the exact bowl tie-ins right now. I was pretty sure the Group of 5 conference champion was going to go to the Cotton Bowl. I thought that was where they were going to get to go this season, but it might be the Orange Bowl as well. And if that's the case, I would love to see Memphis and Alabama. I'd love to see Memphis's offense going up against this Alabama defense that has struggled as of late. And if they had Tua, I would say they'd blow out Memphis. But that could be a type of game very similar to that Peach Bowl between UCF and Auburn from a few years ago. It's extremely possible. Anything can happen in bowl season. Anything can happen on any given Saturday. And I know for a fact, I don't like to hear it from some teams, but I know for a fact that Memphis would take that game more seriously and be playing a lot harder in that game than Alabama. I know some people don't like to hear that, but this is an Alabama team, an Alabama fan base, an Alabama staff, and Alabama players that expect to be playing for an SEC title and for a college football playoff berth and a national championship every single year. And when they fall short of that and are playing in a bowl such as the Peach Bowl or the Orange Bowl or something like that, where is that motivation? Maybe. I do think they would not be thrilled to be playing in a New Year's Six bowl game. They'd much rather be in the playoff, as would many teams, but just the way it works. DJ Powers, have fun, got to tend to keyboard decodes. Some will get it. DJ, I'm sure you're gone by now, but thank you very much for joining us, bringing some great content and some questions as well. Caleb Worku, do I think Oklahoma gets in if they win on Saturday? Oklahoma gets into the playoff if Utah and Georgia lose. If Georgia wins, everybody below them is not getting in. Let's make that very clear. If Georgia beats LSU, Utah, Oklahoma, Baylor, anybody else below them is not getting in. The top four will remain the same. The order of them will just change. Let's get that very, very clear here. If Georgia wins, 2 SEC teams will make the college football playoffs just like we had back in 2017. Because the committee, I'll say this, Georgia's not going to blow LSU out. If they blew LSU out, then scrap everything I just said, but they're not. If Georgia wins, it's going to be in a close game. The committee's not going to take out an undefeated LSU who won at Bryant-Denny Stadium, who beat Florida, who beat Auburn, who blew everybody out of the water except for a handful of games. They're not going to drop them out of the top 4. They might drop them to 4th, but they're not going to drop them out. But if Georgia loses and Utah loses to Oregon, which could very well happen, then yes, Oklahoma, if they beat Baylor, gets in to the college football playoff. And even if Utah wins, the committee is going to have to decide, do we put in Utah or Oklahoma? They're going to put them side by side. They're going to look at all the metrics, strength of schedule, margins of victory, quality opponents, similar opponents if they have any, don't think they do. That is what they're going to look at. So I do think Oklahoma gets in if those things happen, but that's why what happens in the SEC championship and what happens in the Pac-12 championship is so, so important for Oklahoma and Baylor for that matter. Because as we know, this win against Baylor is not a guarantee for Oklahoma. They should have lost the first time around. And then we'd be talking about Baylor getting into the playoff and not Oklahoma. And Johnny, I know you're saying they're not supposed to look at margin of victory, but I think you and I both know that they do. They're not supposed to look at margin of victory, but I know that they do, and that's evident. I mean, they've said it before. I mean, last year they said it. This year, I know they've said it. I can guarantee you that if Georgia beat LSU, as we mentioned, 45-0, they're not just going to look at that as any other loss. Like, oh, Georgia beat LSU. We don't care what the score is. They just beat them. No. Guarantee you not. And I guarantee you that LSU would drop out of the top 4 if they lost 45-0 to Georgia. Margin of victory is there. You look at 2 common opponents. You look and say, okay, well, this team beat this team by 7. This team beat them by 40. That plays a major role in their decisions. They can say it doesn't. But the committee, guys, is like politics. And a lot of politicians are liars the same way a lot of the people on this committee are liars. Not saying they're bad, but they're going to tell you what you want to hear. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind those closed doors that we do not know about. And I guarantee margin of victory, regardless of what they say, is one of them. And I think we're just about caught up here. Wow. So, worked through all those comments, answering all your questions here. And I've enjoyed every single one of them. What else do we have right now? Corey Barber, what is more likely to happen? Virginia beating Clemson or Akron getting in the top 4? Corey, let me tell you what. I'm feeling Akron right now. I think Akron is more than likely going to get in the top 4. At least they'd have a better chance. If you put them side by side, I think Akron has a better chance of making that top 4 right now than Virginia does of beating Clemson. But hey, I've been proved wrong before. Let's see if Virginia can prove us wrong. But I'm going to take my Zips right now. Border Bob, what's going on? It's been a while, my man. It's been a while. since we've talked, at least. I know you had a couple comments on some previous videos, but glad to have you. Glad to hear from you. Glad you're able to join this live stream tonight. Once again, thank you all for joining us. I hope you all had a fantastic Thanksgiving as well. Hope you all had a fantastic Thanksgiving. All is going well for you guys. We are approaching the Christmas holidays now, so one of the best times of the year, not just because of the holidays, but also because of the countless bowl games that are going to be coming our way as well. So very, very excited about that. Caleb, yes, I am in college. I know you're curious, as many have been in the past. I am in college. This is not my room at my actual house, as you can see. This is a very crappy room at a decent university. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity. I'm very grateful for where I am. But yes, we are in college. I am in college. And loving every second of it. Johnny Bays, is very evident that margin of victory is more important than opponent, even though it's expressly not supposed to come into play. Right, and that's kind of what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. Margin of victory is becoming very important, maybe more so than the opponent, but they pay a lot of attention to that. They can come out and say they're not, but they do. They do. So, yeah. That's just kind of the way it is. I mean, I hate that they kind of lie about that. I hate that they're not full out with that. I wouldn't have a problem if they came out and say, hey, margin of victory plays a major role for us. Because, if I'm a coach, then I'm going to be like, make sure we try to win this game by as much as possible. Respectively, you're not going to, you don't necessarily want to beat somebody while they're dead, but I would make sure that we try to win by as much as possible that looks good in the eyes of the committee. Freaky Mike Gaines, do I think Baylor has a chance at the college football playoff? Yes, I do. I mean, as we mentioned, if Georgia and Utah both lose, which are very strong possibilities, a Baylor win over Oklahoma would put Baylor in the college football playoff. If they can beat, once again, if they can beat Oklahoma. If they get in, they're going to be the 4 seed. They would play Ohio State, and I think their magical run would come to an end there. I'll be quite honest with you, I don't see any team that gets the 4th spot beating Ohio State. I mean, I'll be quite honest. I don't see Georgia beating Ohio State. I don't see Utah beating them. I don't see Oklahoma beating them. And I don't see Baylor beating them. And as disappointing as it would be to not get into the national championship, for a team like Baylor that went 1-11 2 years ago, just getting to the college football playoff would be unbelievable. And once again, crazier things have happened. We've seen our fair share of upsets in the regular season. We've seen them in the postseason before. So I'm not going to rule out Baylor beating Ohio State, but I don't think they have much of a chance. But it could happen. But from 1-11 to college football playoff in 2 years, Matt Rule, coach of the year, in my opinion. Corey Barber, gridiron expert for Akron head coach. Hey, look, if I know they're hiring. And DM saying Chris Ash to Akron. I would personally like it better if I went and was head coach and I just brought Chris Ash in as my defensive coordinator. But, I mean, I've got a short list. Every coach has a short list. I've already got my list of potential offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators for when I take a job. Because I do plan on going into that field at some point. So, hey, maybe I'll just send in my application, Corey. Maybe it'll be a Christmas miracle. And by January, you'll be looking at the new head coach of the Akron Zips. Nothing truly would make me happier than coaching that team right now. Honestly, that's not sarcasm at all. Board Bob, completely understand. Work makes it difficult sometimes. Same here. That's why we weren't able to get a live stream out last week. That's it happens. But I appreciate it when you are here. I appreciate anything you can give us when you are available, and I appreciate you just spending some time here. You could be spending your time doing anything else, and you come to our live stream. So I appreciate that. Adler, this is more of a personal question than a college football question, but I was just wondering who my favorite team is. I do go to Arkansas State, but who do I like to root for? I think many people already know that, but it is the unfortunate Arkansas Razorbacks. And I'm not ashamed to tell people my team. I know a lot of the other analysts out there sometimes like to keep it secret. Some of them are very blatant and telling you who they root for. And that doesn't bother me because the beauty of it is everybody has a team. Most people have a team. It's whether or not you're going to be biased towards that team or not when you're bringing analysis. And I hope I've never been biased towards Arkansas in any way. There's really no reason to be. They've been god-awful the past few years. But that's my team, Adler. I'm a Razorback fan. Have been since I was born. And even though I come here at Arkansas State, I'll always support them more so than I will do the Red Wolves here in Jonesboro. So that's just the way I was. That's the way I was raised. Really anxious to see who the Hogs hire as their new head coach. Here it's going to be Lane Kiffin. Here, and that's who it's going to be announced next week after he coaches in the conference championship game with Florida Atlantic. So bringing Lane Kiffin back to the SEC. Not thrilled with the hire, but I'm not fully disappointed with it either. It's not set in stone yet, but that's what all my sources are telling me from guys up in Fayetteville. So we'll see how that plays out. Caleb, my major in college is called Creative Media Production with you're not going to believe this, but with an emphasis in sports broadcast. It's shocking, I know. But that is my major. So creative media, emphasis in sports broadcast. This school here up in Jonesboro at Arkansas State has the best media program in the state of Arkansas. So I was never really going to be pushing to go out of state. That's mostly due for personal and family reasons. I needed to stay here, and Arkansas State gave me the best opportunity to pursue the career that I wanted to go into. So what I'm doing here right now with the Gridiron Expert is something that I want to do for the rest of my career, just at a much bigger scale, at a much larger scale, at a much bigger environment and company. So I appreciate that, and I'm happy with where the direction this channel is going first off, but I'm really excited to see where the career can go further down the road. And I'm a sophomore. I saw your question there. Sophomore in college. I know, also kind of hard to believe. DM, GE to Rutgers as an analyst. I'm not opposed to moving up to New Jersey, man. I love that part of the country. I love New York. I love Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Maine. That whole northeast part, I've been to every single one of them and absolutely love it. So if I could come to Rutgers and be an analyst, especially now that I think they're going to really be picking it up in the next few years under Schiano, sign me up. Sign me up. Love that part of the country. Adler, Gridiron Expert for Florida State head coach, so that Matt Campbell won't leave ISU. Hey, he's staying, buddy. Adler, he is going. Dion Thacker, Agin. Thank you very much, Dion. But he's not leaving Iowa State. He just signed a contract extension. As Cyclone Mitch mentioned earlier, that showed his allegiance and loyalty to the Cyclones and that football program. Him signing that extension to me was a clear message that I'm not leaving for Florida State. I'm not leaving for Arkansas. I'm not leaving for Ole Miss. I am staying put because I do think he's building something in Ames, 100%. I'm very excited to see what he's building. He's competitive, and he's turned this program around for an opportunity to win yet another 8 games this season. That's something that Iowa State can't say they've done in a very, very long time. Emperor of Rome, I'm guessing I did miss your comment. Let me scroll up. About Auburn, Gus Malzahn, Auburn. Auburn fans don't appreciate what Gus has done for their program. Ole Miss fans would treat him like a god. And you're exactly right. Emperor, I'll tell you what, Arkansas fans would treat him like a god. Let's be honest here. Auburn fans definitely I think are some of the most petty fans in the nation. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It comes off that way, but you're right. Auburn's first year under Gus Malzahn, he takes them to the national championship game. He beats Georgia and Alabama in those thrilling moments, something that no college football fan will ever forget, with the prayer at Jordan Hare and then the kick six. No one's ever going to forget that. And he takes them to the national championship and falls just short to Jameis Winston, Jimbo Fisher, and Florida State. 2 years ago, he gets them back to the SEC championship by beating Georgia and Alabama yet again. Yes, they fall to Georgia. Yes, they fall to UCF in the Peach Bowl, but what a phenomenal year for them. And then this year they beat Alabama. So right now everybody's high on Auburn. Maybe they slip into a New Year's Six bowl. Maybe they go to a very good bowl game. Maybe they finish the season 10-3. Fantastic. But you know what? Next year he's going to be right back on the hot seat, because if he struggles right off the bat and fails to beat LSU or Georgia or Alabama, all those fans that are happy now are going to be wanting him out. And to me, those are fair weather fans. I think Ole Miss and Arkansas would be thrilled to win 8 or 9 games consistently, then every now and then break out and win 10 or 11 games and be competing for an SEC championship and maybe a national championship at that. I think Auburn fans have their expectations way too high every single year. Everybody wants their team to do well, but the harsh reality is that It's not going to happen. Only a handful of teams are going to be doing as well as the guys like Alabama, Ohio State, LSU have been doing consistently. I don't think Auburn fans fully understand that. So I fully agree with you. Ole Miss, he'd be treated like a god. Arkansas, he'd be treated like a god. Hell, Missouri, he'd be treated like a god right now. So, yeah, Auburn fans, I don't think they appreciate him. I think they're going to miss him when he's gone because I think he will be gone very, very soon. But because they will fire him, because next year he won't beat Georgia and Alabama. I know he didn't beat Georgia this year, but he won't beat Georgia and Alabama. Next year they might struggle, or maybe the year after they will struggle. They're going to get rid of him at some point, and they're going to regret it later down the road. Johnny Bays, least biased YouTuber with team and conference. I would have never guessed your team if you didn't say who it was. So, well, that is reassuring to me. I appreciate that, and definitely want to. I do appreciate that. I'm going to try to keep that up as much as I can. I definitely try not to stay biased. Even if Arkansas was a national title contender, I would make sure to not even try to discuss them that much or show any allegiance to them. So. And by some act of God, they're relevant next year. You can bet your money that I'm not going to be changing the way I do things. So I do appreciate that. X-Star, never seen you before. Hope you subscribe if you haven't already, but glad to have you on the live stream. Who's winning the title? Gonna have to wait and find out. Hate to do that to you. We're gonna release our championship predictions here in a few weeks once the Final Four is set. I've got to say, I think a lot of people are picking Ohio State to win it all right now. They're the heavy favorite. And my dream matchup right now in the college football playoffs for the national championship would probably be Ohio State versus LSU. I would love to see Ohio State take on LSU in the national championship this year. I know they faced off against each other back in, 2007? I think 2007 it was Ohio State and LSU. Rematch of that national championship. Two of the best offenses in the entire country. Ohio State owns the defensive edge, but the storyline would be they've played so well this season. Can they shut down Joe Burrow, who by that point will probably be the Heisman Trophy winner? So that's who I would like to see in the national championship. Don't know if it's going to happen, but I can't share my official prediction yet. We're going to have every single bowl game prediction starting as early as December 15th, I think. So a lot of things coming out your way. You're just going to have to wait and find out. We don't want to give any big spoilers away. And great point by Colin there. Kind of slipped my mind. Not only can Ohio State stop Joe Burrow, but Joe Burrow gets revenge on the Buckeyes. If LSU takes down Ohio State, whether it be in a semifinal game or a national championship, if he wins, he would get revenge on Ohio State. And that might be the even bigger storyline to watch out for if those two teams end up meeting up. So that would be awesome. That would be awesome. So yeah, fantastic stuff. Kind of slipped my mind there. Yeah, that's not even the storyline. We haven't talked about Joe Burrow and Ohio State in a long time. So, Colin, fantastic point. Adler Pro, he's out of here. He was watching it in class, so it'd be a little bit of a daredevil, but we appreciate him stopping by, taking off early. So, once again, thank you for joining us. And also unrelated, I invited Matt Campbell to my wedding last May, but he didn't come. Man, that sucks. Adler, if you had invited us, I would have been at your wedding. Not as big as Matt Campbell, I know, but at least he would have made an appearance. So, hey, just keep trying. I mean, you only hopefully will get married once, but maybe for some other big event, you can invite him to that. So yeah, man, that's actually pretty funny. But good luck in class, Adler. Appreciate you stopping by. Ethan P, hoping to be a commentator on Fox, Big Noon Saturday. Hey, once again, like I've told you and everybody else has commented that, no one thought I could be doing what I'm doing right now, Ethan. No one thought that I would be on ESPN earlier this summer. No one thought that I'd be doing the way things I'm doing right now. No one thought that I'd be traveling the country now, speaking to countless groups across country, something that we are doing more of on a motivational speaking tour. No one thought that. No one thought that. So a lot of people are going to tell you they don't think you can do it. So just prove them wrong. If that's where you want to go, Ethan, then you just do everything in your power to make it happen. And people that tell you that you can't, just push them off to the side and laugh in their face when you've actually done it. Caleb, I did play sports in high school, yes, and I seem pretty tall in my videos. I'm mostly sitting down. Maybe my other videos where I'm standing up, but I'm a little over 6 feet, Caleb. I'm about 6'2". Some personal videos here, although we've talked before about beards, height, eye color, stuff like that before. So, just the usual comments and discussion here at the Gridiron Expert. I love it. Going through the rest here. Where were these? Syracuse and Buffalo Sports. First off, glad to see you. Happy to have you. It's been a while. Seen your comments on a couple other videos, but glad you're able to join the live stream. Yeah, Syracuse Wake Forest, the rare 9-point overtime win. That was insane. I thought it was a typo. I didn't get to catch the end of that game. Saw they went to overtime. Wasn't able to watch overtime. Checked it later, 39-30 Syracuse. I was like, how in the world did that happen? I was like, touchdown and a safety? That can't be right. But field goal, Johnny, how can you win by 9? Syracuse hit a field goal on the first possession. Wake Forest had an opportunity to win, and they ended up, Syracuse, forcing a fumble and returning it to the house to win by 9 points. I don't know what the spread was on that game. I don't know what the over-under was on that game, but I'm sure that had to have been a bad beat one way or another. Surely that was on Scott Van Pelt's bad beats coming into this week. But, yeah, that was a wild. Great way for Syracuse to end their season, and an otherwise very disappointing one following that 10-win season they had last year, not even going bowling. So I was disappointed to see that, but it is what it is. It's the madness of college football, and it's even awesome that you were at that game. Yeah, just truly ripped it out of his hands. Catches the quick slant, is trying to cut up field, and just jerks it out of his hands. Unbelievable. That to me is won in the weight room and won by mentally having better ball security. So fantastic win for Dino Babers and that squad. 5-7, not great, but always good to finish the year with momentum regardless of what your record is. A win is a win no matter how good or how bad you are. I'd rather end my season with a win than a loss any day of the week. Johnny Bays, good question. Where's Notre Dame ranked if they didn't play Michigan and played an FCS team instead, or paid one, as you said? Notre Dame's ranked 15th. I honestly, Johnny, I'm going to be quite honest with you. Notre Dame pays an FCS school, beats them by 55. Notre Dame moves up from 15 to maybe 12 where I have them. I know that it would only be one loss. I know that they would only have one loss, and that one loss would come to Georgia, who's currently sitting at number 4 right now. But you look at what happened to Notre Dame last year. They went undefeated, and were only the 3 seed in the college football playoffs. Let's let that sink in for a little bit. So we know, and I think the committee has kind of set that precedent as for Notre Dame to get in, they better be a one-loss team or undefeated. And if it's a one loss, it better be close like the one that Georgia was, or at least be to a very, very good opponent. I think even if they paid an FCS school, maybe Johnny, they'd be in the top 10, but they're not going to be in contention for the playoff, at least if you ask me. That's just my opinion. Just judging from the way they have dealt with Notre Dame this season. Now, I admire Notre Dame. They don't schedule FCS opponents. Even if they schedule lower-level FBS teams, they're at least playing Division I schools. They're playing teams that are within the FBS, the 130 teams. I do admire that. I'm not a huge fan of people that do go out and pay these FCS opponents once or twice a year. I think it's ridiculous. But I think the committee has made it very clear the way they view Notre Dame as being an independent, as not playing conference games. A lot of people give them hate for it. I don't. I admire that more than anything else. DM, if there was a TV college football game show, you would win every night. Hey, I would appreciate that. I appreciate that, DM. I appreciate that. You never know. You never know. Ethan was talking about being on Big Noon Saturday or Big Noon Kickoff. I'm cool being on like college football final or something like that. Being on every night, just analyzing this stuff. If you go back and you look at the College Football 150, if you have watched any of those episodes, watched one last night over rivalry games, some of the best actual games taking place between rivals. They had a committee there of college football analysts, from old and young, from newer to older analysts that have been there for a while. All of them did a fantastic job. Wouldn't mind being on that. For anybody that has a potential career path and whatever it wants to be, to DM, to Ethan, to whoever it is, only you can determine who gets there. Only you can determine how you get there. You can work your butt off and you will reach your goals, or you can sit there and say, I wish I could be on TV. I wish I could do this. I wish I could do that. But wishing is not going to get you anything done. So But DM, I appreciate those kind words, as you always have been able to give. Once again, appreciate all of your support and comments and participation, I should add, in these live streams. So going back up here, I want to hit a couple more questions before we shut things down for the night. Emperor of Rome, I see that. Let me tell you something. I'll tell you a funny story about that. I don't know why Arkansas hired Chad Morris in the first place. He was a mediocre coach at SMU against lower competition. So Emperor of Rome and everybody else, funny story. Arkansas 3 years ago, is heating up that coaching search, looking for the replacement of Brett Bielema. There's, is it going to be Mike Norvell from Memphis? Is it going to be Chad Morris? Then of course everybody gets ridiculous and throws out potential candidates like Urban Meyer and Bob Stoops and guys like that. Stuff that was, of course, never, ever going to happen. But when it got closer to time and it became fairly evident that we were going to hire Chad Morris, much like it seems now that we're going to hire Lane Kiffin, I decided I had to do something. So I called the university and talked for a while about why we just do not need Chad Morris. Because I'm like you, Emperor of Rome, why would we hire a guy from SMU that had a losing record? I think he was 14-22. Best win came against Houston, had done absolutely nothing, and was just the offensive coordinator at Clemson. There's something to be said for taking the offensive coordinator of Clemson and bringing you to become your head coach. But when you see a guy that can't even win in the American Athletic Conference, I don't know what made them think that hiring him was going to have him come in and win in the SEC West. I don't know what made them think that, oh, look, he's got a losing record. He can't even beat, East Carolina. But, yeah, we'll bring him in. Surely he can beat LSU. Keep in mind that was made by an interim athletic director. The whole Arkansas athletic department at that time of that hire was a complete dumpster fire. The hire should not have been made that quickly. They should not have let an interim take over and try to maintain and run that coaching search. Many people say Brett Bielema shouldn't have been fired in the first place. I do think it was time for him to go. Chad Morris, though, just set that program back even more. So whoever comes in, whether it's Lane Kiffin or somebody else that could surprise us, they're going to have their work cut out for them. Same for Greg Schiano, who's going to be trying to rebuild Rutgers, and same for whoever comes into Ole Miss, trying to restore Ole Miss to the power that they were under Hugh Freeze, at times being in the top 5 and at times beating Alabama. So any coach that comes in usually has the work cut out for him, but for a team like Arkansas, whoever that coach is going to have even more work out cut for them, because it's such a dumpster fire. It is such a bad state right now. It's going to take a while for that coach to build the team back up. And unfortunately for the fans, they don't understand that. They expect to win immediately. And I'm a fan. I want to win immediately, but I also know that we can't expect to go out and win 8 or 9 games in a first year with a first-year head coach, because they've got a lot of work to do. Bringing in their recruits, implementing their schemes. It's extremely hard to do, something that a lot of people I don't think understand. Now, you bring me to Akron, and you make me the Akron coach. Well, now, hold on. Now, I'm taking the Zips bowling next year. Let me tell you what. You bring me to Akron, we're going bowling in year 1. Corey Barber, hey, I appreciate you, man. I'm glad that my picks are helping you out. Hey, let me know. Keep me updated in your prediction league. Let me know how that all plays out for you if you end up pulling it off. But I'm glad that we're helping you out. And if I'm ever in Salt Lake City, I'll make sure to give you a call for sure. I appreciate that. I was actually there 2 summers ago. I filmed at Utah, filmed at BYU before you've been on these streams before. But next time I'm there, maybe if I'm out there speaking like I have been down the South, I'll make sure to hit you up. So I really appreciate that, man. Good luck in the rest of your prediction league for the rest of the season. Win that Bowl Mania, too, if you do that. Freaky Mike Games, if Clemson loses and Georgia loses, do I see Utah or Oklahoma or maybe even Baylor or 2 more teams getting in if Clemson and Georgia lose? Look, once again, you look at these playoff scenarios, guys, a video that we will have coming out on Friday for that. We will make sure to address that. But, you take Clemson and Georgia out. I think Utah gets in if they beat Oregon. So Utah could rise as high as a number 3. And then I think you've got your Big 12 champion in. So it's Oklahoma or Baylor. So instead of having Clemson and Georgia, you'd have Ohio State, LSU, Utah, and then Oklahoma or Baylor in as your top 4 teams. If Clemson and Georgia, by some crazy thing, more so Clemson than Georgia, if they lose, then you do have that. once again, it's a huge conference championship weekend, guys. It's one of the biggest ones we've had in a very, very, very long time. And I do expect a handful of upsets. Even though in our predictions we may not have had them, it's going to happen. I probably played it a little safe, picking all 5 probably favorites to win. But I feel most confident about Ohio State and Clemson. Don't see them losing to Wisconsin and Virginia. But LSU could lose to Georgia. Utah could lose to Oregon. And that Oklahoma-Baylor game truly is a toss-up. I'm picking Oklahoma. They're favored. They beat them the first time, but it's extremely, extremely tough to beat the same team twice in the same year, let alone twice in a span of 2 or 3 weeks. All right, let's see what else we have here. That's a fantastic question. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't have many names in mind right now. Who should be Schiano's offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator? If I have some names in mind, I don't have any, but I will certainly get back to you on that. Would love to get back to you on that. I'm curious to see. I don't know what Schiano's previous staff was. I know he coached there from like 2001 to 2011, and then of course coached in the NFL for a little bit of time. Don't know who was previously on his staff, and he'd be willing to bring some of them back. I don't think he'll retain much of the current coaching staff. So he's going to kind of bring in his own guys here. So I'm curious to see who those people will be. I am curious to see if he's going to bring in guys that he formerly coached with. One name that I'd love to see come back and just coach in the Big Ten is Brett Bielema, the former Arkansas coach, thrived at Wisconsin. Brilliant defensive mind. Would love to see him come in as defensive coordinator under Schiano. But right now, Bielema's got it made. He's up in that part of the country. That's the only reason I say that. But he's coaching with the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick right now. And I just don't see a guy like him leaving the NFL. The best team, one of the best, Baltimore Ravens might take that spot now, but one of the best teams in the NFL with a chance at the Super Bowl and leaving to become a defensive coordinator in the college ranks. I think if Bielema ever comes back, it'll probably be as a head coach. But very well could come back as a head coach in the Big Ten, where he thrives more so than he did in the SEC. Emperor Rome, love how the Akron Zips are a meme on this channel now. I think we need to keep this gag running as long as we can. I mean, 0-12 is a little something that's quite the accomplishment. But yeah, I'm loving it too. I'm loving all the Akron Zips jabs, and you are the one to credit for that. You are the one that started it, and you are the one and the main reason this keeps going. So thank you very much for bringing some humor to all of this. And I'll take my final question here from Freaky Mike Gaines where we wrap things up. Going on a little over an hour here, guys. Once again, want to thank all of you guys. Do you see Florida ever getting in to the college football playoff? Well, absolutely. Absolutely, I do. You're looking at it, Freaky Mike. I'm telling you, they're number 9 in the country right now. They're a 1 win away over Georgia from being much higher than that, potentially being where Georgia is right now, or the number 4 spot, and then a win over LSU in the SEC championship from getting into the college football playoff. Dan Mullen is building something down in Gainesville, and he has built something quickly in 2 years. They should have beat Georgia this year. They could not get off the field on third downs, and their offense struggled way too much compared to the way they've been playing earlier in the season. They probably should have won this year, but what it showed me from the Georgia game they had last year to the Georgia game they had this year, Florida grew a lot. Florida got a lot better. They got more competitive. Georgia's time is running out. Someone made a good point. I saw a post that Mark Richt's first 4 years at Georgia has not been that much different from Kirby Smart's first 4 years at Georgia. They've both been about the same. And they're trying to say, is Georgia really that much better under Kirby Smart? Are they that much better than they were under Mark Richt? I think that remains to be seen. I think that depends on if Kirby can get a win this Saturday, win the SEC, and then win a national championship, something that Richt was unable to do. Unable to win the big games. But right now, Kirby, great years with Georgia, but not really putting up the big numbers and not getting the job done, which is getting a national championship. But Georgia, yes, Florida will make the college football playoff. I don't know if it's next year. I don't know if it's the year after that. But Dan Mullen's building something. He's got better resources in Gainesville than he did in Starkville, and he almost got them to the playoff in Starkville. He's the type of coach that will get him there. And I guarantee it's going to happen in the next 5 years. I'll put that out there. Next 5 years, Florida will be in the college football playoff. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight on this live stream. We're going to wrap things up. Unfortunately, we've got finals coming up here at college. I know. one of the worst times of the year. Most wonderful time of the year mixed in with one of the worst times of the year. But this is your final top 25 going before conference championship week, before the final, really the final one on Selection Sunday. We're going to know who's in the top 4. We're going to know who's going to New Year's 6 bowl games. Bowl bids will start to be accepted, so we're going to have plenty of comments and analysis on those games. So you're not going to want to miss that. So get ready. The college football season is coming to a close, but in a way, we're just getting started because we have a lot of content coming your way. So I want to thank you guys once again. Stay tuned. Game of the week analysis for the SEC and Big 12 coming your way tomorrow and Thursday. Playoff scenarios coming out on Friday, and then all next week, getting you ready for bowl season, and of course, addressing what we see on Selection Sunday. So DM, Johnny Bays, Border Bob, thank you so much. Adler, thank you for that. Hey, if I'm ever by Ames again, I'll make sure to give you a call. Same with Corey up in Salt Lake City. So I want to thank all of you guys for joining us once again. Stay safe out there. Enjoy all the content, and we'll see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.